to a very special episode of the Legacy Gambit. Today, me and Sarah are live reacting ban and restricted announcements, which literally came out 5 minutes ago. So we are getting the I'm reading it for the first time. I haven't read it yet. Sarah's read through it. And we're just going to get straight into it, Sarah. Let's do just standard, no changes. That's to be expected. Pioneer, Amalia, and Soren have gone. We can discuss that a little bit. Modern, this damn bird, finally gone. And Grief. Grief's gone, Sarah, thank God! The Lord has spoken. This damn elemental can do one. And, because they felt zesty for some reason, Urza's Saga and Vexing Bauble are got in Vintage. Well, there's also some stuff in Explorer. Other formats didn't get anything. Yeah, before we read why, Sarah, your initial thoughts.
This is an extremely conservative ban announcement. What's actually more interesting than anything else to me is them admitting that their ban and restricted timings have been a huge problem for the game.
Okay.
The opening paragraph on this is talking exactly about that. So it's good to see, like, Wizards
admitting a mistake.
Yeah, admitting, like, that the ban announcement timing has basically hamstrung their own RCQ season,
which is very
as well as, you know, putting things in a bad spot. Though weirdly, because of that, I expected
more.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Like, I didn't expect it when we talked to Eternal Durdles.
Yeah.
But kind of over the week since then, it started to build on me that, well, maybe they want to take a more aggressive stance to make up for lost time.
Yeah,
right?
That makes sense.
In which case, I would expect something from Phoenix to have gotten hit in Pioneer.
Yeah.
In Modern, I would have expected, you know, potentially the One Ring. I really didn't expect a Grief ban in Modern, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I kind of, with Nardu going, I suppose the Black-Red Scam deck is still pretty good.
I still think that deck is, like, notably worse than almost anything else you can be doing. True. I think if you're going to ban Grief, it's that you think that Necrodom and Esper Goyos are going to be too good.
Yeah, that's fair.
Which is fine. I mean, from their kind of write-up of it, I think it's mostly play patterns, which is fair.
The story of
Legacy, I was expecting Grief Frog.
Yep.
To be honest, at this point, they've gone just Grief, which was what I mostly advocated for.
Yeah.
Though I'm a little... It just feels weird compared to the other ones, right? Well, if you take it...
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I'm just saying, if you're going to take action on, like, both Amalia and Soren, that leaves Phoenix untouched, right?
Yeah. The Pioneer, certainly.
Yeah, you take action on Nadu, Grief, while Modern is becoming One Ring Tribal Town.
Yeah.
Feels strange.
I mean, again, they have data we don't have, like, you know, what it is in thing. I want to just touch on the update on the ban and restricted announcement. Notably, the next announcement is December 16th. Eternal Weekend would have happened by then. So this is the format now. This is certainly for, you know, obviously you're here, you're a big fan of Eternal format content. This is our format. So strap in, everybody, for Frogtober, Frognember, and Frogsember. But yeah, I like the fact that they are aligning this to RCQ seasons, certainly for the formats where it is a Pro Tour and RC format. I think that makes total sense. Obviously for the stuff we mainly play, which is Legacy and Vintage, although Sarah also plays Pioneer and Modern as well, I think that it makes it better, and they can obviously absorb stuff quicker. And I think this being fewer BNR announcements, I'm like, but also please this scares me a little bit in terms of, like, so yes, you're relying into RC and RCQ season, but for the formats that don't have an RCQ season, what happens? And maybe they speak about it more in the article. I'm just reading this fresh off the bat.
So I think the way to think about this announcement is them saying, like, we're going to align it, but that doesn't mean they're only going to act on the formats that have the RCQ season. It's just saying that they're going to be more closely aligned, which is good. The thing that worries me about this announcement is they're talking about, you know, being more conservative in this ban list, and then saying that we're going to have less announcements. As you get into their reasoning for each one, they're talking about being a bit more conservative with their choices for this one, which It's difficult for two reasons, right? Number one, you're going to have less, which
Yeah,
means that if you continually very conservative on each iterative BNR,
yeah,
the amount of time that it could take to shake out to a good format is longer, right?
yeah.
And number two, it kind of feels like we're a BNR behind, right? Because in my mind, Grief should have been banned at the previous BNR,
Yeah,
which means that we would have been playing Frog Legacy, as people are now calling it,
yep.
up to now, and they would know whether they should take action on Frog or not at this one,
I mean, that's
and then we go to Eternal Weekend,
I mean,
right?
that's the. I mean, I can tell
Yeah.
you that from Ragavan to Astrolabe to Oko. Like that's just. It always feels like they look. Well, I mean, let's read this because it's like, yes, I agree. This they can take a lot of power. Phil Blackman is very much like, give us more. Just give us more. We can self-correct ourselves. And I think that this may like I'm just reading this fresh, and I think this is fine. But I think you're correct that this should have been done before. We probably should have been playing Eldrazi Frog, and then looked at it and the fact that I mean they haven't even mentioned Eternal Weekend yet. So this
Yeah.
this sentence, it having a smaller metagame presence was I think the Scaminator deck is, as we know it, is basically dead. But the blue-black tempo deck ain't dead. Delver can just assimilate Frog. However, Sarah, Eldrazi is, I think, a good addition. I think people get. I know a couple of people, the blue fans will be like, oh, Eldrazi is so good. You can like micro spawn on turn 3. I'm like, so okay, deal with it. You know what's good against a deck that only plays non-basics? Blood Moon, back to basics. You know what else is really good? Freaking Swords to Plowshares. Anything. I think Grief getting banned, we all called it. It makes sense. Yes, I think there probably are a turn cycle and a ban announcement behind what happens. But this gives us something to at least work with. It means that Eternal Weekend has a metagame that we can sort of semi-predict moving into Eternal Weekend. I don't think that unless Frog is as egregious, I think we might be. I am trying to be very look, folks. I think they should have banned more, but I am also part of me is also just a bit tired of ban talk all the time.
Yeah, I agree.
You know what I mean? Have you been like we've talked about it? Other people in the community have talked about it, and there's a part of my soul that is like, I love my format. I love both these formats, Legacy and Vintage. We'll get to Vintage in a minute. Vintage is even more exciting. I think that let's see what Frog does. Now we don't have Grief. Let's see what Frog does. It might be too powerful, Sarah, but we don't know. And I think I'm in agreement with you that yes, we should have been doing that in the summer, but we're now doing it now. And it might get to the end of the year and we go, you know what? Frog was ever a banned Frog at the end of the year, early next year. But
my general opinion that Frog might end up not being like a huge issue still stands.
yeah, that's
It's
fair.
just kind of like when we've lost so much time and we're going to have less ban announcements in general, you would hope you'd be a little more aggressive with the ban announcement,
I mean,
right?
there'll be people on the internet who think that they don't care about the format. I will tell those people, calm down.
But yeah, like my opinion is that if Frog isn't going to be a problem, we need an uptick in Wraths and White removal.
Yes.
Which means we need Death and Taxes to come, which isn't impossible, but it's not like unfortunately it looks like there's a best thing to be doing.
I mean,
And
sure.
my actual worry is that Death and Taxes doesn't come back because Doomsday Frog Tameo becomes like
I mean, but that deck again, Sarah, as both of us are fans of an Ancient Tomb strategy or two, that deck, I'm kind of hoping now we've taken Grief out the equation. There are certain decks can come back. Like there'll be decks that haven't had time in the sun that can let's breathe some life back in, and maybe combo comes back a bit more. Like maybe Doomsday is one of the best things to do. You know what's good against Doomsday? Like Delver. You know what's good against the big mana. Yes, the big mana decks can't deal with like Doomsday or whatever, but they can deal with like the tempo decks, which then it's the whole like we need that kind of cycle of like, well, this beats this and that beats that and this beats this and this whole thing needs to happen. Also, heaven forbid, Sarah, you know one deck that I always loathe that when we play against it, but I think is always good? Team Italia, Jeskai Control. That deck might come back. It has all the answers. It has all the things to deal with the format. It's got the best white removal money can buy. It's got counter magic, and it's got a win conditional too. Maybe. Who knows?
Maybe.
Who knows? If whoever's building it. But I think that for me, I'm happy Grief is banned. Yes, could they have done more? Yes. Could they have done some unbans? Probably. But like they've done this. This is their plan. This is I can now look at the rest of the year and go, okay, we know what's to be expected. There is probably going to be a best deck or two. How do we combat that? And yes, I think the Psychic Frog is very good, but it now only pitches the Force Will, and I am okay with that. And the thing is, and this is something I've sort of recognized in the way that this card gets played out, good players can figure out how to play with Psychic Frog. And I know that sounds really like obtuse in what I'm trying to say, but you know what happens sometimes is bad players or people who are trying to figure out how Psychic Frog works empty their entire hand. You know what you do when that happens? Source of Plowshares. And what are they going to do? Absolutely nothing. Because people are going to get greedy. They're going to be like, you know what? I'm going to dump my entire hand. This thing's on 7-8. I'm like, guy, my guy or girl or whoever, what are you doing? This is a skill testing card. I think this is a skill testing card. We'll see. I might turn around in like a few weeks and be like, I hate this card with an absolute passion. But until then, I have to be hopeful. That my point is I'm trying to be hopeful. I am so frustrated with people just, myself included. I did it too. I just want to just have some fun and just be hopeful that we as a community can actually just, you know what? This is the format we're in. Let's deal with it. Is Delver going to be a good deck? Yes. Should it be the good deck? Yes. Is that blue-black tempo deck kind of cool? Yeah, it is. But there's ways around it. Like, we just have, like, again, I'm not saying like adapt or die, but I'm also just saying we've got something new. Grief is gone. I am at least happy about that. And my genuine fear, hand on heart, Sarah, when I woke up this morning, was no changes. Hand on heart, no changes. We noticed that people are cutting. I can hear it in my head. We noticed with the uptick of Psychic Frog and Orcish Bowmasters that people are reducing grief. So we've decided to review it in a couple of months because we've noticed a downtick in grief. And I, Sarah, between you and me and the people at home, would have flipped the table. Figuratively and probably literally. But they haven't. They've taken the take we've all decided to take. And this tells me that realistically, maybe they just see it as a format that self-corrects itself. And because it hasn't self-corrected, this is where they've had to take action. Which indicates to me that they really do just want to see, like, they only really want to get involved with Legacy when it is that bad, which is both good and bad. Like, I kind of, I reading between the lines here is like, simply put, Legacy has not been able to self-correct to handle the powerful combination. I'm like, okay, so you're only here when stuff gets really bad. And that's kind of what this is telling me, if I read between them. Maybe I'm kind of reading a bit too much in the lines. But the fact that this tells me, yes, you think the format's powerful. Yes, these were old cards go to die. Give us more powerful stuff then. Like, if that's the case, you could have unbanned stuff. But they haven't. Maybe they do that next year. But for now, I'm happy Grief is gone. I can now play Initiative again in peace and quiet. And a few other decks can rise out the ashes, pick up where they left off, and then we can deal with the issues at hand. Because I think if we can't beat Psychic Frog, I sort of question what we're doing as a format as well. And maybe that's a little bit like rose-tinted spectacles. And that's sort of my 2 cents on it. I think we'll be fine. Like, I think...
Yeah, I hope so. I just understand why people are frustrated and kind of sad about it. Yeah, it's so there's part of me, and this is like a selfish part of my like thought process, is just going, well, I kind of wanted to be playing Death and Taxes anyway.
I mean, it's a good deck. Like, as an Ancient Tomb gamer, I'm a bit sad, but you know, I also have to. I feel like there was some discourse on the Eternal Dirtle stuff of like, you know, format specialists just whining about the cards that they can't play in their decks, and that's what like the people want to ban. I'm like, no, like I also I don't like they didn't have they mentioned play pattern? Did they mention play pattern of grief? Kind of a player much like that's fine. Like
it's more that, you know, Grief gets around its traditional hate cards. It's kind of interesting because it ties in with the vintage announcement and them talking about play draw disparity.
Oh, I haven't read this shit.
Yeah, I think they tie in. But what really kind of worries me actually is like you've talked about being an Ancient Tomb gamer and that being good. I just think Ancient Tomb is not good into exactly Psychic Frog. Like I feel like Moon Stompy actually is not a good deck into Frog.
I mean, you can't kill. You gotta pyroblast it, basically. You gotta pyroblast it. That's the only thing you can do. And again, I don't want to turn this into a Moon Stompy like
yeah. It's just the point I'm making though is like when I look at this, I don't think the Ancient Tomb decks come back a lot. Like
Eldrazi, Eldrazi is like I will. Eldrazi is an Ancient Tomb. It's like a spaghetti cousin, but we accept all into the Ancient Tomb members.
I mean, Painter kind of sits here and goes, "Oh, cool." Like Painter's pretty happy about this. I think we deal with Frog decently well. D&T stocks go up. Maybe we can stop splashing black in D&T now.
But the bones. But them bones.
The Bone Boy is like
I think it's more a sideboard. Going to be anything.
I mean, you don't sideboard Bone Boy. You're either like playing black white and you've got Bone Boy and sideboard Fort Caesars, or you play mono white and you have neither of those things. I don't think it's like Bone Boy ever lives in the sideboard. But yeah, like my long point that I'm always making is this is the ban I expected. This was the ban I would be happy with if they didn't say the thing about less ban announcements. When they say they're doing less ban announcements, then I go, why are we being so conservative? We're already a ban announcement behind. We're going to have less announcement. Eternal Weekend is now this. Though I really, really hope it just turns out that I'm wrong on that. Frog ends up being fine because white comes back into the meta. Maybe we'll see Pride Tempo just going straight blue-white and just being like, we don't play Frog, and Frog is actually bad against us. But in my mind, that deck is just better when it's Esper, which is terrifying, right? Like, we're splashing awkwardly because this Frog is too good, right?
I mean, yes. Like, again, we have to see what, like, again, now we're in that period where we have to see how good Frog is. We just have to see how good it is. Like, we're in that stage. Let's talk about vintage, then. Because every vintage player I spoke to in the last week and a half has just said no changes. Why would you change? Because I've been planning about what to play next for Eternal Weekend. Because, you know, I'm very fortunate that I have access to potentially play in Eternal Weekend. I'm like trying to evaluate my options there. I basically yesterday asked a few vintage players what will happen. They said nothing, no changes.
Yep.
So when I see this and I've bought my full Vexing, I now go, wow, good time to be a strong lady gamer. That's all I'm kidding. I think Saga is a very fun card. I think Saga is a very good addition to Vintage. However, this is like, I think having one, I mean, don't forget, those restricted cards are still very good, folks. I think for the format diversity, I think Saga kind of needed to be nerfed in some way. And I don't know if it kills Loris Saga completely.
No, it doesn't. I don't think
so either. But it's a genuine point on how, because Lorien Revealed still exists, but you're not as reliant as finding Piffing Needle, Lotus, Mishra's Baubles. Please insert other Vexing Bauble, your other Vexing Bauble. Like, now these are one-offs. So yes, now I think I think things like OG Tinker probably are viable again. Thank God, I think that deck is actually very healthy for Vintage.
I want to make a weird point here. Because I think it's easy to look at this and go, oh, as a Saga Vexing Bauble, they start talking about Loris. This is entirely targeting Loris. I feel that the thing that this affects way more is Jewel.
Yes. I mean, they're not going to mention that. Because I think Jewel is still going to be a good deck, though.
I actually don't think that's true.
Do you think it cuts off too much from their plan B and C?
I think this really hurts Jewel.
Good. The deck's so boring and busted.
I mean, whether you think that's good or not.
I mean, sure, I'm winding you up, but like, you know, like I always felt Jewel was like what people think vintage is, and it was also just like, okay, you have all the best restricted cards, and you have a bunch of mana, and I know you could deal with it, and then they're like Saga, and like, yeah, I think that for me, the fact that you could just go Saga, and like if you wastelanded it or you dealt with it, they played another one, and that was just as a play pattern was so frustrating because you're like, I have a bunch of ways to deal with Urza's Saga and construct tokens, and as a mono white gamer, I have warped my deck multiple occasions to try and beat Laura Saga, and they still can get through, and you're like, why do I bother? Why do I bother? The way I dealt with it was just by attacking them quickly. But I think it is interesting that the opportunity cost is a genuine thing. I'm glad they mentioned this because, you know, every deck that can play Saga could play 4. And you're like, well, there's no diversity here. Every Laura Saga deck sort of looks the same. Every Jewel deck has 4 Saga. Every Tinker deck has 4 Saga. Like, any deck that could play Saga could play it without any impunity because everyone has Moxen and Lotus floating around. And apart from, I honestly think, like, Bug, Oath... I mean, Oath played Saga at one point. But at least, like, Bug, Oath, Doomsday, Mono White, and Bazaar. Like, anything that wasn't, like, you know, that was doing something different to what, like, I would call, like, artifact vintage. Like, shops as well have had 4 Sagas. But yeah, I think that you just had this game plan that, like, just slotted into your overall strategy, and now people have to think, can I play Saga? I mean, I probably will.
My mindset now is that, like, okay, so I haven't been playing as much vintage as I should be. I love the format, and so I should play it a lot more, really. My initial mindset is I'm still going to be a Loris player. And I just go straight blue-black, and I play 4 Psychic Progs. I have less colorless cards in my deck. I'm just going to go more into the Frog plan.
That's fair.
And that's going to be my strategy. And weirdly, I think the Frog plan gets more consistent now because the mana is less of a problem.
I mean, have you met vintage players?
I'm no longer going to get baubled against as much.
That's true.
Which is good for me.
Yeah.
So I weirdly think if they were trying to target Loris Saga, I don't think this announcement is it.
I mean, I haven't spoken to the vintage community yet, but I think that Bauble. So I was very. I think Bauble sort of killed Bazaar, like kind of just killed Bazaar decks outside of Dredge completely. Mm-hmm. Like it completely killed any non-Dredge Bazaar deck because you just couldn't do the powerful thing. Like, I mean, they even say it here of just like, you know, a player who goes first and resolves Vexing Bauble before, you know, this is not this. This was vintage for a long time, and I, as someone who is an aggro prison player, go, yeah, this is very frustrating because if they go turn 1 Vexing Bauble on the play and your hand is just a bunch of mocks, and you're like, well, why did I turn on Magic Online? And yeah, like that is like I like the card. I think the card is good, but it was also like it warped your deck. Like it warped. Like I remember when I was trying to build Mono White. And I tried it in other decks as well, of just like, it just warps the way you play. Like, it was like, well, turn 1 Bauble. Like, I literally, like, all my spells resolve, you know, all this stuff kind of happens. But I think that they've realized Moxen, Lotus, and Force of Wills are a major reason why people play the format. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think you still have one. If you're a Saga deck, you definitely still have one. and you play Chalice of the Void. I feel like Vexing Bauble now is Chalice of the Void Trinisphere. In that sense of, it is a busted one-off. You'll happily play it in a sort of prison deck with your shops, mono white, other things like that. And it'll be great. But it's not completely backbreaking. Like, you know what Vexing Bauble reminds me of a little bit? Not as egregious. Khan, when Khan got restricted. Like, Khan absolutely busted. Khan was not so busted. And I think Vexing Bauble, for play pattern purposes, I'm kind of glad they took this, even though I bought my full one. But I think that, you know what? I kind of like this sentence. In the spirit of keeping vintage about vintage.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, this is, I mean,
this is fundamentally the Maharu for, God, I can't remember her last name. So yeah, this was Maharu's take when the card came out. Pretty much. She was straight up like, look, you have it on the play, you have it on the draw, they are completely different cards.
Yeah.
Getting to dump your Moxen and then go Vexing Bauble on turn 1 is just completely against what she saw as vintage, right?
100%.
And was like, this card will have to be restricted because it stops vintage being vintage.
100%.
And people, I feel like, were very negative about this take, and not in like a disrespectful way. I just mean like there was a lot of disagreement. Like notably,
yeah, I was one. I was like, this helps you. This helps the decks that need that extra push and are very good on the play to then do. Again, I'll raise my own bias as a mono white gamer. On the play Vexing Ball when you've done everything is insane. But I also respect that that's not what the game is about. Like, that's not what Vintage is about. Vintage is about playing these powerful cards. And for me, I will now treat Vexing Bauble the way I treat Chalice of the Void and Trinisphere. They're good on the play, they come out on the draw, and then I have a bunch of other things to deal with the format at large. Heck, I could play Solitude again. Hell, play Solitude again. I love Solitude. Don't add to me. I'm a big fan of Solitude in Vintage still. I know people not, but that's my own point. But I think the Legacy and the Vintage one, it's so odd. They read very similarly, but I feel like they've taken, I don't know, I feel like the Vintage one is like a lot more
this is the thing, it's a lot less conservative,
yeah,
right?
Now we've spoken about it, I'm like, they've actually, like, you know, if they just said in the spirit of keeping legacy about legacy, Vexing Ball, you know, frog, psychic frog, or up the beanstalk or whatever, I'd have been all right. I mean, the modern one, and you know, they talked about One Ring. There is no clear that's not a sentence. Sure. There is no clear the One Ring deck. Oh, sorry, I have to read it that way. I mean, like, why? What is this? Like, why are you giving us why are you giving us an ultimatum?
Tune in next week. Well, I feel like that kind of editorializing is fine.
I mean,
like,
no, sure. I also don't mind it, but
especially when you're like mid RCQ season on this format that you're doing a ban list for, which it's kind of like, yeah, we need people to get excited about this next one.
I'm glad they mentioned this.
Yeah, I've read that article as well. They did the thing that I wish they didn't do, which was try and make it a build around for Commander and then completely break it.
Is it like is it as bad as when they admitted about Oko that it should have been a negative one? Is it as bad as that?
It might be worse. But you know what? I do appreciate transparency.
You may cast permanent spells and so they had flash. I mean,
that was the original. Like, this is the thing. So I'm glad Wizards is being more transparent about making mistakes.
That's fine. We're allowed to make mistakes.
However, I really hope that if Legacy goes full frog in the run up to Eternal Weekend, they at least consider an emergency ban. Like, that's my thing now. I know we don't want to do emergency bans.
Yeah, I mean,
I get
that too.
It's just like when you're behind a ban announcement, you might have to be willing to be like, we need to put one back in so we get back on track. It's
I agree with you. I 100% agree with you. I wonder where in the cycle you have one Eternal Weekend's worth of data, and then
act before all the Eternal Weekends or not act at all.
I don't think that the fact that the next ban announcement is December 16th tells me there's no. I'm telling you, sir. I don't think they're doing anything. That's it.
Oh.
We're done till before Christmas. They'll be like, I can hear the announcement in my mind. We have taken all the Eternal Weekend data and have seen the rise of X card or the rise of Y card. And so, to maintain format diversity, we have decided to ban blah blah blah. Or we have decided to unban blah blah blah. I think we're not getting any unless, and this is a big if, unless there is a deck, whether it's Frog, Eldrazi, whatever. Please insert good deck up Delver, is like the same numbers or more. I think we're done with the format as it stands. I want to be wrong, of course, but this announcement plus the less announcements generally, the fact that emergency bans rarely happen, indicates to me that Legacy. Some people might look at this and go, they don't care about Legacy. And to those people, I say, no. I just think they probably put the emphasis on it being a community format. I hate to admit it, we're kind of at that stage. And they will only take action. This is the line that kind of tells me this. The line up top,
Okay.
This.
I mean, my real worry is that for Eternal Weekend, you do have the specialists and such. It's just like, if you assume that everyone is just going to pick what deck they think maximizes their win percentage.
Oh, there's going to be so many mirrors.
Yeah, I don't think there is a good way to fully self-correct out of Frog of being a problem. Unless, this is the thing. In my mind, the only way that happens is if, for some reason, the white decks themselves have a good reason to select them that aren't just, I like playing the white decks, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, Death and Taxes gamers are going to play Death and Taxes, but you can't balance a format around people refusing to swap decks, right? This is...
No, that's fair. And I don't disagree with you. I
kind of just hope blue-white tempo becomes a thing, and that's what will push Frog down. That's my honest hope, is that sweet deck
that we played
realizes it can... Because if blue-white tempo becomes a really, really good deck, it might want to start cutting Frogs, because it's Frog is bad in the mirror.
Yeah.
And maybe we actually end up in this kind of weird self-correction. But that's kind of the only way I really see it happening.
I'm also in that spot. I need to take some time to obviously think about this for my own deck choices and plans for Eternal Weekend. Because obviously that is, I feel like, yes, as content creators, we are happy that there's some new life in our Eternal formats, a bit of zeal and a bit of zest. But as a player, I think both of us as players, Sarah, this is a conversation that is going to keep going for the next days and weeks of just what happens next. And a lot of creators will be talking about what happens next. Some people will be more pissed off. Some people will be a bit more happy. Some people will be happier. I think for me, I am happy enough. I'm happy enough. I'm surprised about Vintage. That's the one that threw me. I was like, excuse me? You actually pulled the button? And I'm actually more excited about playing Vintage, and that's bad. I'm more excited to play Vintage because I'm just looking at this going, well, I don't have to see this damn Saga card all the time and this damn Bauble card all the time. I see them occasionally rather than all the time. But I'm also just, I think I kind of want to sort of end on this a little bit. I think now I kind of just want us as a community, as an Eternal format community, especially with Eternal Weekend coming up, to just have a little bit of introspection is the wrong word, but just as a kind of okay, they've done something. Is it better than nothing? Yes. Would we wanted more? Yes. But they've done something. We take it in our stride. We figure out what's next, and then we work with that. And that's kind of, I think there's just needs to be this element of just getting stuff done. I am kind of hoping that now with Grief gone, more dedicated combo decks, more dedicated decks that need their pieces can play Magic again. And I hope that things like I think like if that tempo deck becomes a thing, I think Jeskai control and like OG control comes back. If that happens, as an Ancient Tomb gamer, I'm not happy. I'm not sad. I am just trying to look at this a bit more objectively and go, okay, well, what's as a player, what does my future look like? What do I play next? Do I decide maybe it's time to put down Ancient Tomb and play something else? I'm not averse to that. Neither are you, Sarah. You happily will play Death and Taxes if someone gives it to you. I might be like, you know what? Maybe Ancient Tomb like mono red isn't the way. I actually think this make it work, but maybe there's something else. Maybe I might try Eldrazi. Who knows? Who knows, folks? But I think we wanted to kind of give you our initial reactions. And I think for a lot of people, both me, Sarah, and for the folks at home, look at this and think about it in the context of you as a player, you in the community, and you if you are planning to play events. What does that look like? Like, are you just now going to try and find the best thing to be doing? If you're a deck specialist, how do you adapt to the news of both Grief being banned in Legacy as a Saga and Vexing Ball restricted in Vintage, Nardu and Grief being banned in Modern, and Amali and Sorin being banned in Pioneer? We do talk about other formats, although obviously our key interest is Legacy and Vintage. I think just take some time, take some introspection. I think the next couple of weeks, the challenges are going to be very interesting, Sarah. I think that's going to be super insightful.
I genuinely am considering just registering D&T to a challenge and seeing what happens.
See how it goes, Habibi. I'm excited for you. For me personally, I still am going to let Legacy shake out just for the next couple of weeks. See what top dog rises to the surface, and then from there, because for me right now, I'm trying to think about what the metagame looks like in November, December. Realistically, don't really have much planned for the upcoming thing. I'm trying to think about, okay, well, how does this format look like in 6-8 weeks? And some people have that luxury, some people don't have that luxury. That's just my own personal thing. Folks, tell us in the comments what you're trying to do. If you think this is the worst thing since sliced bread, also tell us. If you think this is fine, tell us also. And I think, Sarah, unless you have any closing thoughts, I think that's sort of our take on the format as a whole, what we think.
I feel like I've been overly pessimistic about this announcement while it's going, because I want to say, like, I think all the cards that actually got banned are pretty fair to say about the ban. The only one on power level might be, like, Grief in Modern.
Yep. That makes sense.
Also, people are sick of Grief in Modern, so I'm not even, like, that upset about it. Like, if anything, we're saying they might have been better to ban more. But I think every card they got banned is generally fine.
Yep.
Vintage, maybe not on power level, but they're making a play pattern argument.
Which is fine, we're allowed to do that.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, fine. This is fine. I only sound pessimistic because I'm trying to think through the other implications of what they've done here.
Yep.
And if in their first one in December, they're like, right, we've got less ban and restricted announcements, so we're being more decisive, then suddenly that all goes away, right? Yeah. Like, I'm worried that they're saying they're being conservative and they're going to have less BNRs.
That's fair.
If they hear people express this opinion and go, that's a good point. Next time we won't be as conservative, but we just wanted to be it for this one, then I'm like, oh, okay, my mistake. That's completely fine. Yeah, that's really my only actual worry.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm genuinely decently happy.
Yeah, I'm also decently happy. Thank you everyone for tuning in for this special episode. We'll be back to normal service. This week we've got some cool videos lined up, so join us for that. But until next time, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Help us keep growing. Help us keep talking to you about Eternal formats that we love and care about, and we want to share with you because that's kind of the point of why we do this. But next time, it is goodbye from me, and it is a goodbye from Sarah. Bye.